Hello YouTube and welcome to another review, and this time we have AIRFIX's 132 scale World War II British Infantry Support Group. This set was released around about the mid-70s, probably early to mid-70s, around about 1975 era, that sort of time. There was no, obviously, British Infantry 132 at that time. All you had really was the commandos, the paratroopers and the 8th Army, I believe. And the British Infantry set 132 came out at about 1980, and that was a big box, so you got plenty of figures in that one. So this one was really the standalone British Infantry set up until 1980. So while you had the German infantry and, you know, the other things like that, you had no British infantry. This was all that was on offer. And this is more or less a kit, really. Although you get a few men with this, it is, you know, pretty much a kit. Artwork-wise, it's pretty good. There's a lot sort of happening on there. We've got Focke-Wulfs flying overhead, and these guys look pretty set in the ways there, whatever they're doing. Firing a mortar, radio operator. We've got a guy just probably sinking in his mortar with the binoculars, and Vickers machine gun over to the far right. On the left of the box is a actual figure painted, and also gives you the actual size, which is of course 132. Right up on the box is supporting the infantry is a vital role, enabling them to continue fighting effectively and being able to become isolated and confused battlefields they may be operating in. Used in conjunction with the standard World War II British infantry, this set comes with support troops equipment as used in battlefields of World War II. There are 17 unpainted figures, 58 unpainted accessory pieces. Paint will adhere best to figures if first washed in a mild detergent solution and dried thoroughly. Contents may vary, so it's obviously just telling you you might get a different amount of figures and a different type to what's advertised there. So yeah, they're just advising you, you know, this is a kit, and you'll use their paints, and it's giving you a little bit of modelling advice as well. So this is the box. I will say the figures are reasonably well painted on this. Got no issue there. You've got an officer, you've got the radio operator, who was probably the radio operator from the British paratroop set, but I don't know, I think he probably is. So there's a lot going on. We've got a bazooka guy there, which probably isn't totally relevant, but there you go. And obviously along the bottom we've got what's actually contained in the box. So we get 2 mortars, we get 2 Vickers machine guns, and we get some rifles and stens and ammunition boxes and jerry cans. So not too bad, I'd say. So we'll have a look at what the figures are like. So this is the officer, and not a bad little piece, to be honest. He's not too bad. There's quite a bit of detail on there, showing his age, I'd say, but he's not bad at all. I will say the plastic has a consistency of kind of a model aircraft would. It's not very solid. I think I remember these being quite a sort of standard. If you remember the old vintage AIRFIX figures, and they were kind of light green, a lot of them, and the plastic was pretty solid but soft. These are very brittle, and it definitely feels like a modeller's sort of plastic. So, you know, having said that, I like the colour is good, and I mean, as I say, these are really, I don't know what AIRFIX were thinking with this set, whether they just said, well, let's make a sort of kit thing and maybe people can do a diorama. I mean, if you were a kid, you'd break all these heavy weapons that they do have, but you know, but he looks pretty good. He needs tidying up, there's no doubt about it, but he's not too bad. You can probably just see the flash lines there. You know, he's got a smart looking tie, and He's got his revolver, it's his map case, so he could be worse. And he stands very well. They've got nice AIRFIX bases on them. So this guy is our radio operator, and like I say, you've probably seen him before. He is the paratrooper radio operator from the British 132 paratroop set, and he's got his sidearm. The beret, obviously you'd paint that black instead of the red or the maroon of the Red Devils. So radio, you know, there's a little bit of detail on there, which is always quite nice. And like I say, again, you'll probably see there's a big line through his face. You just need to tidy that up. But all in all, he's not too bad, is he? Like I say, this plastic is very brittle. That won't take much. See that there? That's already on its way. So that'll just easily break. But again, he's always stood very well as a figure. Now here we have our guy sort of walking along with his shell containers, so whether they contain the mortars or the bazooka. I think these are for the bazooka, but obviously I don't think the British did use bazookas. I'm not saying that they wouldn't have landed in their lap at some point in the war. I'd say they would have, and he's certainly carrying some sort of bazooka type carrying case shell. Again, detail on this chap, there's a lot of detail there. I mean, it's sort of the more or less the giveaway with these, the face is a little bit sort of, you know, but you know, at least AIRFIX have bothered to put a bit of detail on these, and this is an old set now, you know, and the rifle just sort of disappears into his body there, which is a bit of a minus, but he's got little bits of equipment on him. So he could have been a lot worse. But as it stands, he's not bad. If you're a really, you know, clever little modeler, you can probably dress these figures up, no problem. So he's not bad. Now we have this guy crawling on the floor. Now, whether or not he's part of the set with all the gizmos, so we've got Stens and we've got some Lee Enfields to come, and he just possibly put a Lee Enfield across his hands. I think that's obviously what he's supposed to do there with this one. Again, a little bit of a sort of mould line there. There's a bit of detail underneath, which, like I say, they don't really have to do. Face is rather non-existent. He looks kind of like the snowman. But yeah, luckily from the top he actually looks alright, so he won't really have much trouble with that. So he probably should have one of the weapons on him just to make him complete. But again, he's not too bad. So this is our engineer or field operator, and he's just getting the coordinates to zero in the mortar, I would say, and looking for the targets and what they need to set the mortar to. So this chap, I remember, there's a little bit of black in there, from obviously from the factory. Don't know whether that's coming out on the camera. Get my hand out of the way again. There we go, he's zeroed in again. This chap I remember from school. I mean, this is first school, and he would be a random figure in a big bag of plastic soldiers, and like I say, the plastic was a lot better then. It would have been more like the old vintage AIRFIX figures. It's a kind of light green, it's hard, but it's soft in its own way. He would have been in that sort of type of plastic, not this sort of lightweight modelling type. But again, he's not too bad. He's got his Sten on the back, which is quite a good little a good little sort of model of a Sten on there, and you can see his bit of his webbing there. He's got a pocket. I mean, he's not a bad little figure in himself. So no, not too bad. Yeah, could be worse. Let's have a look at this chap. So he looks sort of familiar to the one carrying the bazooka rockets, but I mean, take it from me, this guy's a little bit different. He looks like he's got a notepad, so he's something sort of officious. Again, you've just got a little bit of mole lines coming down there. Got a nice model of a Sten on the back, and he's got his water bottle. So yeah, I mean, you know, they certainly are looking like a support group. They're carrying light, short weapons, just so that they can hit back if the enemy get behind them or whatever, and they can defend themselves, so it's not too bad. Face again is a little bit sort of wide and unremarkable, but c'est la vie. Now, what else have we got? So here is our Bazooka Charlie, as I like to call him. So he's got good hands on there, and I mean, a bazooka is basically a tube, so there's not a lot I can say. You turn it to the side here. I mean, it's a good pose. He's got a sidearm which is apt for, you know, he's able to defend himself. You can see his ear just in there, so they've bothered to put a little bit of detail on. There's even the string cord for the pistol just showing there. You can see his spats there, bottle. Yeah, I don't think he's too bad really. Just like I say, the bazooka thing, but I just, you know, I would never rule out that the British didn't actually use them. I think they would have used anything the Americans could give them really to give an advantage, but yeah, normally we'd have a Piat, but you know, sometimes a bazooka is a bloody handy thing as well. So what I'll do, I'll move on to the sprues. Now, first off, we've got this one. Now obviously, for the purposes of showing you, I've broken off a couple of items just because I've set them up already, but this is the base for the Vickers machine gun. That is the Vickers. It's not a bad little representation of one. There's a good bit of detail there. That's the base for the mortar, and there is two Vickers, like I said, and two mortars. There we go, there's part of the mortar there. We've got jerry cans here, and they're fully assembled. It's just a jerry can in its most basic form. We've got Lee Enfields here, which aren't too bad. And there's, like I say, the other bit of the mortar there. And I've already set up a couple of mortars to show you. So that's that one. And here we have some of the nitty gritty stuff. We have our carry case there. We've got our bullets for the Vickers. We've got spare Stens. We've got some mortar shells. We've got more ammunition boxes. We've got shovels, and we've got a condenser for the Vickers here. So yeah, that's not too bad. I'll be fairly comfortable with that. And the mortar is already fully formed. And likewise the carry case for the rockets for the old bazooka. So what I'll do is I'll set up the Vickers guy, and I'll show you what he's like. So here we are with our Vickers machine gun. Now I think the guy that I originally said has probably got the Lee Enfield may well be the guy feeding the bullets through the Vickers machine gun. So it's just a thought. it's quite difficult to sort of position them without being in the way. So you would need a couple of people to operate a Vickers, so it makes a kind of bit of sense. But that's what the Vickers looks like in its own sort of basic form. There's the condenser here, and we've got the bullets feeding in there. This guy does have hands, and they're in a clenched motion like he's holding the Vickers, but you know, it's very, very primitive. It's just literally a bit of a molded lump of fingers, so don't expect too much on that. But you know, it sort of does work in its own strange way. But it's not a bad little model of a Vickers. I mean, there'll be better ones probably around if anybody does them, but it's not bad for the period. It's good enough. So that is the Vickers crew, and like I say, there'll be 2 sets of those, so enough to fill your boots on that one. So not a bad little model there. So the next one I'll do will be the mortar, so we'll have a look at that. So here we are with our mortar crew. Now I don't think I showed you this guy because obviously I was going to do this with the mortar, so he's obviously different as well, the one with the shell. So these are the figures, I believe, for the mortar. I could be wrong, but if you look at the box, which I'll show you again, it does look like that's correct. So that's what you get. Now the mortar itself isn't bad. It's quite easy to assemble. Just like the Vickers, it just drops in the peg holes, so it's pretty good. I think again, the figures, you know, they're a bit flashy again. You know, you'd need a little bit of dressing up and just touch them up a little bit and make them look a little bit better than they are. Let's have a little look at this guy if he'll do it. But that's a close-up of this chap. You know, his hands are a little bit awkward. You see the face, it's just a little bit, and there's that sort of mold line just there. So, you know, he's not an amazing figure, but you know, it's just enough. Our little loader, have a little look at him if the camera will focus. But yeah, he's not bad either. He's not bad. I mean, they could be worse. So I mean, you know, sort of all in all, it's not a bad little sort of set really. And you get a lot of figures. I'd say the price a little bit steep. This cost me about £15, so you know, it's not cheap by any amount. So it just depends what you want to do. I mean, if you're a young lad, obviously, you know, like a young kid, these things are going to break and things like that. The soldiers themselves are quite a delicate sort of plastic. You'll lose, obviously, the tips of rifles, aerials and things like that will come off. If you're wanting to build a diorama in that, I think there's some useful items here you could use. It's just whether or not you want to pay the price of £15, which I think is about the same cost as the German mountain troops. The box is roughly the same size. It is a bigger box than the standard 132 one, but the German mountain troop set is quite good. And this one's not bad. It's probably feels a little bit older, is the worst I can say about it, but it's not bad. So, you know, but I'm glad I've done that one. It's always sort of bugged me, this sort of set. You know, I just used to see these random figures showing up in other kids' sort of soldier collection, and this was one of them. So, you know, I'm glad I've put this one to bed. But there we go. So, you know, nice looking mortar. And we'll just revert back to the box cover and see what we do as a roundup there on this one. So that was my review of AIRFIX's 132 World War II British Infantry Support Group, which is, like I say, it came out around about mid-1970. Plastic's a little bit odd. It does feel like a modelling sort of AIRFIX kit rather than soldiers. So in essence, I guess that's what part of this is. So they probably just decided to do the whole thing in a sort of modeller's plastic as such, but I can't remember it being like that, to be honest. Not the figures anyway, but yeah, it's not bad. I'm actually pleasantly surprised. I thought it was going to be worse than what I imagined, but not bad. Just a bit steep. £15 I think is a little bit steep. So no, I think that'll do it. So thank you for watching again, and I hope that's helped anybody out there if they've been interested in this set as well. But that's all from me, so we shall see you very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.